Disney Plus, it was just seen that they removed the Avatar, James Cameron's Avatar film, from Disney Plus just ahead of a theatrical re-release that they have coming up of the first Avatar film. And I'm of two minds with this because I see the business purpose for pulling it off of your streaming service because you want to encourage people. That's the nice word of saying it. Encourage people to go see it in the theaters for the re-release. But quite frankly, I think it's potentially a very scary business model for a streaming service to provide, if not an outright scummy one, because you're essentially forcing your subscribers who sign up to your service and pay you a monthly fee to explicitly have access to your catalog of movies. Like, who's to say how many people would have signed up for Disney Plus explicitly to watch Avatar leading up to the release of Avatar 2? Like, who's to say that you're not missing out on losing subscriptions just for that? But instead, they're pulling Avatar off. So the only way anybody could even go watch it, whether you're a subscriber or not, is to buy it digitally, buy a physical media copy somewhere, which probably doesn't exist at this point, and then going into the theaters to see it. As opposed to, on any other day of the week, you could just pop on your Disney Plus app that you pay monthly for to watch the movies that they put on their catalog service. And I think inherently it's a very slippery slope of some really bullshit kind of business models that they could do. Because imagine this, seriously. Like I said, they're pulling this from Disney Plus to encourage people going out to theaters. The only reason I would be any justifiable reason for that would be if James Cameron completely redid the CGI and there's some crazy cool special edition that he's remastered and they want it to go into theaters first. So James Cameron explicitly wants everybody's, quote unquote first viewing of Avatar 1 today to be this new remastered version. If that's the reason and it's a one-time thing, then fine. But I highly doubt it is. So imagine Avengers Kang Dynasty is coming out in theaters and they pull all the Marvel movies off of Disney Plus, or at least all the ones that are relevant leading up to this Avengers movie, to force you to have to buy them somewhere else, or they're going to put it in theaters in a re-release, so they want you to go pay to see it in theaters as opposed to watching it on the streaming service that they always have it available on, except for when we have a new release coming out. So we want to con you in to having to pay us more money, despite the fact that you pay us a monthly subscription already to have access to all our content. I just find that to be a very that could potentially be a super scummy thing that I could totally see them doing, since they're already doing with Avatar. You know what I'm saying?
No, I completely agree. Here's the one silver lining to that cloud for me is that I would hope the movie would completely backfire. I hope people would be like, "Nah, I'm not going to go see Avatar 1. I'm not going to go into the theater and pay money to go see this movie that came out, over a decade ago, and if I can't see Avatar 1, I'm not going to go see Avatar 2." And they could just be shooting themselves in the foot because people are like, I'm not going to go see a sequel to a movie I've never seen that I don't want to pay to go see that had access to 2 weeks ago on Disney Plus, and now I don't. There's a lot of content out there right now. There's a lot of things for
Oh yeah.
people to spend their time on. So if Disney thinks that they can maneuver people or trick people or force people into going and
Finesse 'em.
consuming it one way, finesse them, thank you,
Yeah.
into seeing it one way, it could end up backfiring on them. And if it does, I would not hate it as far as the Avatar. I don't want to go on a rant, but God, I've never understood Avatar.
Me either. No, that was fine.
It's fine. Yeah, that was it. That's the great word for it. That's the epitome of Avatar. It is fine. It
Yep.
is not the movie that should be the #1 movie of all time. Like, I just don't get it. Um, but that
I don't yeah.
shows you where the world was back in, what was that,
2009, I think,
2009?
yeah.
2009, yeah,
Yeah.
when they were cramming 3D down everybody's throat and they thought it was going to be like, I don't know, like the advent of CG into movies. Like they thought that was going to be the next. They thought by this point everybody would be watching every movie in 3D, and it never materialized. No matter how much they tried to cram it down people's throat, and for some reason, Avatar just caught the world at the right time, and it had a bunch of things. Like I kind of get it on a certain extent. It was James Cameron who, up until that point, the biggest movie in the world was Titanic, so it was his next film. So it was he was getting all the Titanic people to come back, but I've just never like after my first viewing of Avatar, I was like, all right, I saw it, like it was fine.
I've only
I didn't
watched it
need to see it
once, yeah.
again. Yeah, me
Yep.
too.
But I never cared
So
to watch it again. And
yeah,
I
and
don't doubt James Cameron, though. Like, I don't doubt that Avatar 2 will be a good movie. He
sure,
hasn't made a bad movie. He's
no,
made all good movies.
yeah,
He made Aliens and Terminator 2, and those are literally some of my favorite movies that have ever been made.
yeah,
I don't doubt James Cameron. I believe wholeheartedly that Avatar 2 will be better than Avatar 1, but in the end, it's still just Avatar, and that world really did not grab me in any compelling way. Like, it was just everyone always says it, but it was just like Ferngully in space, and it's like it was Dancing with Wolves, it was Ferngully, and it's like on a basic fundamental level, that's all true. But like, I outright just I don't like the way the Na'vi look. I think
yeah,
they look stupid. In all
yeah,
honesty, like I don't know why anybody thought they looked cool. I still think they look stupid, even with the updated character models in Avatar 2. No offense to James Cameron, he's a much better filmmaker than I am, but the creature design was not that
sure.
great. Like, I don't know. I have no idea why Avatar is as big as it is, but or as big as it was. The craziest thing is that Titanic and Avatar, neither of them blew up the box office like on release. They were just movies that were
It's
like Top Gun. They just stayed in theaters.
they stayed good for a long time. Yeah,
Yeah, they
definitely.
just consistently kept making money, and they didn't have at the time, there was nothing else out there that was anything like it. So it's like
Hmm.
all these people were going back to see it. Some people saw it in 3D, then they went to see it in 2D, then they went back to see it in 3D. So like the 3D for that movie in particular was more of a selling point than any other movie in history. I'd be willing to bet everything on. But the 3D didn't make it any better of a movie. It did like they did make the movie to actually, because most movies don't really do this, like make it to where the world itself is the immersive 3D experience.
Hmm.
Most 3D movies were really gimmicky, so they just had the fucking knife fly out at you, like
Sure.
woo, that kind of stupid stuff, and no one cares about that. But I don't know. I'm just more upset about the potential, like, of all the things Disney, and that's the thing, we don't really know if this was a mandate by James Cameron to not, because I could totally see James Cameron being like, "If we're gonna do this re-release of Avatar, I don't want people streaming it,
Mhm.
period." Like, I could it's James Cameron, and if James Cameron came up to Bob Chapek and said that, I'm sure Bob Chapek would just have his tail between his legs and say, "Okay, Mr. Cameron." At least that's what he should say. But knowing Bob Chapek, he probably wouldn't take James Cameron's call. But nevertheless, I just don't want this to become a regular thing that streaming services do, because it just reminds me of, like, pay to win video games and how they just bend over their consumers, right?
Customers,
Like,
yeah.
you go and you play these games and you like there's a free to play version of it, but you're really encouraged to spend just hundreds of thousands of dollars. Looking at you, Diablo Immortal, for instance, where like you can spend, there's people who have spent $100,000. Now, granted, these are whales who do this for like stream content, but there's literally people who have spent $100,000 on Diablo Immortal. It's like just because you have to. You can't even, there's no other way to get, you can't, your character cannot even become as powerful if you don't pay to win. And like I feel like it's kind of the same concept here. It's like you're just bending people over twice because it's like you sign up for these streaming services to have access to these movies, but then you're just gonna pull them. It's not that you're just pulling them down. Like HBO Max has been pulling stuff off of HBO Max because no one's watching them. But in this case, they're pulling something off of Disney Plus just so they can put it in theaters and that be the only way you can watch it to literally force you to go pay more money. And I think that
Mhm.
is just bullshit. Like,
Well, it's a
it's
scary
just stupid.
it's a scary precedent too because that's the way these things entertainment works is when the sequels come out. That's the reason sequels are so successful, I think, to a certain degree, is because of that nostalgia and that kind of recapturing the way the first film made you feel and then building upon that and stuff. And so naturally, whenever a sequel comes out, or the next part of of a story comes out, that's going to be the times that people want to go back and revisit the other one the most.
Exactly.
Now, for me, for people like me who will go back and watch The Dark Knight every 6 months just because I love the movie so much, there are certain movies like that that's, for certain people that will work. But on the whole, most of the time that these movies are really important, the time that people have these streaming services so that they have access to these things, are for when things like sequels come out, so that I can go back and watch Avatar 1 and get and refresh my memory and relive, re-immerse myself in that world so I'm all ready when I go see Avatar 2. But if this is going to be the precedent where you're paying for these streaming services to have access for these things, but then they're not there when you want to use them, then it kind of makes it kind of feel like, well, then why the hell am I keeping this service? Why do I even want the streaming service when I can't watch the stuff I want to watch when I want to watch it?
Yeah. Well, to your
And
point, they're taking advantage of their customers because
yeah,
like you said, when the sequels come out and stuff, they know that's when there's more interest in the older properties. So what are they
yeah.
doing? Oh, well, let's just take that down and put it in theaters because obviously there's going to be a lot more interest in people trying to watch this now. So let's put it in theaters so we can make more money. Because all
Mhm.
these people, they're still going to stay subscribed to us. So we're still going to get their 10, $15 a month, whatever it is. And then I know that's not what Disney Plus is right now yet, but they are increasing the
Going
price
there.
here soon. And but now it's like we're going to force them to go into theaters. And like to your point and to my point in the beginning, what if they start doing this with the Marvel movies? Because then you're
Yeah.
not looking at just one movie getting pulled. They could pull every goddamn Marvel movie out just to make you go have to buy it digitally because they know people are going to go want to watch XYZ amount of Marvel movies leading up to the Avengers movie that's coming out soon. So,
Sure.
oh, well, let's just take them off of Disney Plus for a little bit. I'm sure they'll see increased digital and physical sales of their Marvel films at that point in time, if
Mhm.
not just hopefully alienating all their customers and forcing them to unsubscribe. But in the end, they know that's not going to happen on a large enough scale to hurt them. And that's just like the shitty world we live in, where there's like these. That's honestly the problem with them. All these corporations. On this is a different rant, but them having so much access to just analytical data on the consumers, because like they know they can do this, and the ends justify the means to them. Like they know
Yeah.
there's X amount of interest in people wanting to watch Avatar, but they also know there's not enough interest to where this would alienate enough of their customers to actually have any sort of negative impact on their bottom line by losing subscribers in any way, shape, or form. They know well in advance that they obviously know they're going to make more money by pulling it and putting it in theaters and not alienate any people. Like on the flip side of that, you do that with the Marvel movies, a little bit different. There's a lot more people interested in the Marvel movies, so, like, they would see a lot more backlash if they did that, and they have all that data at their disposal to be able to know just how badly that will impact them, but nevertheless, that's my fear, is every streaming service could eventually start doing shit like that because they already do it in video games, and video
I don't.
games are the largest, most profitable industry out there, so why wouldn't movies copy what games do?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's almost as I mean, I think the only way it gets any crappier or any shittier is if they start putting movies behind, like if they kept Avatar up on Disney Plus, but they said, in order to access this, you have to pay us an additional $2 this month. and like
That would
and
be
like
worse,
started
yeah.
and then started like charging for content on a streaming service that you were already paying for, just to access it. It kind of was what they're doing now. They removed it from there, so the only way you can access it is to pay for it somewhere else. I think the only, the only way it gets a little crappier is to remove access to it unless you pay them more money on the service that it was already on.
Well,
But
yeah, and I'm sure they thought about doing that, but, like, that's why I think, like, the 2 options is, A, they just knew what I just mentioned. They had the analytical data to know that, like, obviously, they'll make more money if they put it in theaters, and they know there's not gonna be enough subscribers who are gonna care enough or be offended enough in any way to unsubscribe because those people aren't gonna go pay to see Avatar in theaters anyway because they weren't
yeah,
watching it. So, that's why they just did it just to do it. And then the other reason is maybe James Cameron mandated it. I could totally see that being just as valid of a thing because it's James Cameron. Like, but nevertheless,
little George Lucas going on there, like this is my version, this is my ultimate version, this is the only version that's going to exist now.
well, even without even without him doing any sort of special edition to it, I could just see him mandating if we're gonna put this back in theaters, I don't want people to be able to stream it right now.
Okay.
Like, I could see him doing that. I would prefer it to be the other bit. Like, if he has done a bunch of work to remaster the first Avatar and he just wants people to actually go out and see it in theaters before they update the Disney Plus version, that's respectable. Like,
Yeah.
I won't do it regardless, so it doesn't matter to me. But like that's more of a respectable thing. But if that was the case, I feel like James Cameron or Disney would have made like a press release about it as opposed to just quietly removing it from the service. That's like the kind of shady part about it is they just didn't say anything. They'd have come out
Mhm.
and said ahead of time, like, we're gonna pull it for because James Cameron has a new, remastered version, and we want you guys to see it in theaters, but we are gonna put this updated version back on Disney Plus after we pull it out from theaters. That's fine. That would have been good. And the fact that they didn't do that makes me think it's just one of the other two more shitty options, but one of them being less shitty than the other.
Yeah.
But nevertheless.